The underestimated species, the Nexus Station, hung in space like a crystalline flower, its petals made of reinforced titanium and quantum glass, stretching across 12 kilometers of void. Built at the gravitational center of the Kepler trinary system, it served as the galaxy's diplomatic heart, where 47 different species gathered to decide the fate of countless worlds. Today, however, the station buzzed with an energy that felt different. Electric with anticipation and barely concealed disdain, Captain Elena Rodriguez stepped off the transport shuttle and into the main docking bay, her boots clicking against the polished metal floor with measured precision. Behind her, a small team of humans followed, their simple gray uniforms looking almost primitive compared to the elaborate ceremonial armor and biosuits worn by the other species representatives. Elena's dark eyes swept across the gathered aliens, noting the way conversations stopped as they passed, the way digitized laughter echoed from translation devices, the way some species didn't even bother to hide their amusement. The Zarathi delegation stood at the center of the bay, their towering forms draped in ceremonial battle cloaks that shimmered with embedded energy fields. Admiral Kekstar, their leader, possessed the typical Zarathi build, 3 meters tall, 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, and scales that shifted color based on emotion. Right now, those scales displayed a deep purple that Elena's briefings had taught her meant contempt mixed with humor. So these are the famous humans. Kekstar's voice boomed through his translation collar, the mechanical tone adding an extra layer of coldness to his words. The species that claimed to deserve a seat at this council after only 50 rotations. In the void, Elena stepped forward, her chin raised despite being dwarfed by the alien admiral. Admiral Kekstar, I'm Captain Elena Rodriguez, representing the United Earth Systems. We're honored to participate in this summit. A sound that might have been laughter rippled through the gathered aliens. The ethereal syndicate's representative, Ambassador Vale Inara, floated nearby in her containment suit, her gaseous form shifting between blue and silver. Her synthesized voice carried across the bay with the musical quality her species was known for. Honored, she says. How quaint. Tell us, little human, what exactly do your people offer this galaxy? Your ships barely achieve quantum fold capability. Your weapons still rely on projectile and energy beam technology. Your colonies span nearly 7 systems. Elena's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. We offer perspective, Ambassador. Sometimes the newest voice in the room sees what others have missed. Kekstar's scales shifted to a brighter purple, almost violet now. Perspective? From a species that discovered fire while we were bending space-time to our will? Your entire civilization could be erased by any one of our fleets before your primitive sensors detected our approach. The crowd of aliens pressed closer, drawn by the spectacle. Elena could see representatives from dozens of species, the insectoid hive collective with their clicking mandibles, the crystalline resonance empire, whose forms chimed softly with each movement, the mechanical forge dynasty, whose robotic ambassadors recorded everything with glowing optical sensors. All of them watched the humans with expressions ranging from amusement to outright hostility. Dr. Marcus Chun, Elena's chief science advisor, stepped closer to her shoulder. His weathered face showed no emotion, but Elena could see the tension in his clenched fists. They had expected this reception, had prepared for it, but experiencing the galaxy's dismissal firsthand still stung. Perhaps, Kekstar continued, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture of theatrical generosity, we should give these humans a chance to prove their worth. After all, the Council Charter requires demonstration of capability before full membership is granted. Elena felt her heart rate increase slightly. This was the moment they had anticipated, the moment that would determine humanity's future among the stars. What kind of demonstration did you have in mind, Admiral? Simple. Kekstar's scales now showed bands of gold, satisfaction mixed with predatory hunger. Each species seeking council membership must prove they can contribute to galactic defense. Show us your most powerful warship. Show us what humanity brings to the table when the galaxy faces a threat. The murmur of alien voices filled the docking bay like static. Elena could hear the skepticism, the barely contained laughter, the whispered bets about how quickly the human demonstration would end in embarrassment. She looked around at the faces surrounding her, some curious, some hostile, all convinced they were about to witness humanity's final humiliation. "Very well," Elena said, her voice carrying clearly across the bay. "We accept your challenge." Kexstars. Scales flickered with surprise before settling back into amused purple. "Excellent. You have 72 standard hours to bring your most powerful vessel to the Kepler system. We will gather the combined fleets of 7 major powers for comparison. I do hope your ship at least has functioning shields." The laughter that followed was cruel and multi-layered, translated into dozens of languages, but maintaining its mocking tone across all of them. Elena stood perfectly still, letting the sound wash over her without flinching. When it finally died down, she spoke again. 72 hours will be sufficient. However, I should mention that our vessel is currently engaged in routine operations near the Centauri Nebula. It may take some time to recall it from its mission. What mission could possibly be more important than proving your species' worth? Asked a representative from the Void Stalkers, his voice a mechanical rasp through his environmental suit. Elena's smile was small but genuine. Research, mostly. Captain Morrison has been conducting long-term studies on stellar formation and quantum field manipulation. Very routine work, but the data is valuable. Dr. Chung glanced at her, and she caught the slightest nod he gave. Good. He understood the subtext, understood what they were really saying without saying it. The other humans in their delegation had gone very still, their faces carefully neutral, in the way that only came from intensive diplomatic training. "Research," Kexstar repeated, his scales now showing bands of yellow, amusement tinged with disbelief. "Your most powerful warship is conducting research. How very ... human. We believe in maximizing efficiency," Elena replied. "Why waste time with dedicated research vessels when our defensive platforms can multitask?" The casual mention of defensive platforms sent another ripple of laughter through the crowd, but Elena noticed that a few of the more experienced military minds in the gathering had gone quiet. Ambassador Valenara gaseous form had stopped shifting colors and settled into a thoughtful gray-blue. The Hive Collective's representatives had begun that rapid chittering sound they made when processing complex information. "I will contact Captain Morrison immediately," Elena continued, pulling out a standard human communication device, a simple tablet that looked laughably primitive compared to the neural interface communicators and quantum-entangled thought transmitters the other species used. "The UE's Prometheus should be able to reach the Kepler system within the time frame you've specified." "Prometheus," mused one of the Forge Dynasty representatives, its mechanical voice carrying just a hint of curiosity. "An interesting name choice. In your mythology, was he not the one who stole fire from the gods?" Elena's smile widened just a fraction. "Something like that, yes." As she began typing on her tablet, the alien representatives started to disperse, returning to their own delegations to report on the exchange. Elena could hear fragments of conversation, most of it derisive. The humans would arrive with some outdated battleship, maybe a primitive dreadnought with fusion cannons and magnetic shielding. They would fire a few impressive-looking, but ultimately harmless shots at an asteroid, claim victory, and then slink back to their small corner of the galaxy with their dignity somewhat intact. But Elena noticed the ones who weren't talking. The career military officers and veteran diplomats. who had seen enough warfare to recognize when something didn't quite add up. They watched her type on her primitive device with expressions that were harder to read, eyes that held questions they weren't yet ready to ask. The message she sent was brief and coded in standard military encryption. Package delivery required. At primary venue. Standard demonstration protocol. Authorization Prometheus 77 Alpha. The response came back within minutes. Acknowledged. Estimate arrival 36 hours ahead of schedule. Cargo manifest includes educational materials. Morrison sends regards. Elena read the message twice, then deleted it and put the tablet away. Around the docking bay, the various delegations continued their conversations, making plans for the NATO. Upcoming demonstration, placing bets on how spectacular humanity's failure would be. None of them noticed the way Elena's team had gone very, very still, or the way Dr. Chun was now smiling like a man who knew a secret that would change everything. Asterisk. 36 hours ahead of schedule, Elena murmured to her team. Captain Morrison always was eager to show off his work. As they walked toward their assigned quarters, Elena could feel the weight of expectation hanging over them like a storm cloud. In less than 3 days, humanity would either earn its place among the galactic powers or be relegated to permanent second-class status. The aliens around them were convinced they knew which outcome was inevitable. They had no idea how wrong they were about to be. The Titan awakens. First sign that something was different came from the long-range sensors on Nexus Station 37. Hours after Elena's message, Dr. Yashi Okafor, the station's chief sensor operator, stared at her displays with growing confusion as space itself seemed to be ... bending. "That's not possible," she muttered, her 6 arms dancing across the control interfaces as she ran diagnostic after diagnostic. The Altarian species was known for their precision and attention to detail, qualities that made them excellent sensor technicians. But the readings she was getting defied every law of physics she understood. "What have you found?" Admiral Kekstar's voice boomed behind her. He had been monitoring all incoming sensor data personally, wanting to catch the first glimpse of humanity's pathetic excuse for a warship. "Sir, I'm detecting gravitational anomalies approximately 47 light minutes from our position. The space-time distortion suggests something very large is approaching, but the signature doesn't match any known drive system." Dr. Okafor's primary hands continued working while her secondary hands pulled up comparison data. "The energy output is ... substantial." Kekstar leaned over her shoulder, his massive form casting a shadow across the sensor displays. "How substantial?" "Approximately 15% above the theoretical maximum for quantum fold drives, sir. And that's just what's leaking through the distortion field." Within minutes, representatives from every major power were crowded into the sensor control room. The space was designed for perhaps a dozen beings, but now held nearly 40 as everyone tried to get a look at the impossible readings. Ambassador Valenara's containment suit hummed as she processed the data through her species. Advanced computational matrix. "The harmonics are all wrong," she announced, her voice carrying an edge of uncertainty that was rare for the normally confident ethereal. "Whatever is generating this distortion, it's not using any technology we recognize." Captain Elena Rodriguez arrived at the sensor room 30 minutes later, having been summoned from her quarters. She squeezed through the crowd of alien dignitaries, all of whom were staring at her with expressions ranging from suspicion to outright alarm. The casual confidence she had maintained for the past 2 days hadn't wavered, but now there was something else in her dark eyes. Anticipation. "Captain Rodriguez," Kekstar's scales had shifted to a deep orange, the Zorathi equivalent of serious concern. "Our sensors are detecting massive gravitational anomalies. Are you certain your vessel is approaching from that vector?" Elena glanced at the sensor displays, noting readings that would have been impossible for any ship in the known databases. "That's the UES Prometheus." "Yes." Captain Morrison mentioned he was testing some new navigation protocols. "I hope that's not causing any problems? New navigation protocols?" The mechanical representative from the Forge dynasty processed this information with visible confusion. "Captain Rodriguez, the energy signatures we're detecting exceed the total output of some star systems." Captain Morrison has always been thorough in his research. Elena replied with the same maddening calm she had maintained throughout the summit. "I'm sure the readings will stabilize once he drops out of quantum fold." But the readings didn't stabilize. Instead, they got worse. Space began to ripple like water as something impossibly massive approached the Kepler system. The combined fleets of 7 major galactic powers had assembled for the demonstration. Over 300 warships, representing the finest military engineering the galaxy had to offer. Zorathi dreadnoughts bristled with plasma cannons. Ethereal battleships floated like deadly clouds, their energy-based forms pulsing with contained power. The Hive Collective had brought their organic bioships, living creatures the size of cities bred specifically for warfare. All of them were dwarfed by what emerged from the distortion field. The UES Prometheus didn't so much arrive as reality, seemed to step aside to make room for it. It was massive beyond comprehension, its hull stretching across distances that challenged the eye's ability to process scale. The ship was humanoid in its basic architecture, but refined to an artistic degree. Flowing lines that suggested both organic growth and precise engineering, surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and along its hull, structures that defied immediate categorization. "By the void," whispered one of the Hive Collective representatives, their usual clicking speech pattern disrupted by shock. "How large is that vessel?" Dr. Chun, who had remained silent throughout most of the summit, finally spoke. "The Prometheus is approximately 47 kilometers in length, with a beam of 12 kilometers at its widest point. It masses roughly equivalent to a small moon." The silence that followed his statement was absolute. Every sensor in the system was focused on the massive human ship, and the readings they returned seemed to mock everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics and engineering. The Prometheus wasn't just large, it was impossible. No known technology could move something that massive at faster than light speeds. No known power source could provide the energy requirements for a ship that size. No known materials could maintain structural integrity across such dimensions. And yet there it was, hanging in space like a small mountain that had learned to fly. Impossible. Kekstar's scales had gone pure white, a color Elena's briefings had told her indicated complete shock. No species has ever built anything approaching that size. The engineering requirements alone would bankrupt entire civilizations. Elena touched her communication tablet, sending a brief message. Moments later, the Prometheus began to move. It didn't accelerate the way normal ships did, with visible thruster emissions and gradual speed increases. Instead, it simply began to be somewhere else, space flowing around it like water around a swimming creature. The massive vessel approached, the assembled fleets with casual grace, its movement somehow both impossibly smooth and utterly alien. "Nexus Station Control, this is Captain Jackson Morrison, aboard the UES Prometheus." A calm voice came through the communication channels. "Requesting permission to conduct the requested demonstration. We have prepared a suitable test scenario." Kekstar's communication officer, a nervous-looking being from the Whisper Syndicate, stammered into his equipment. "Use Prometheus. You are cleared for demonstration. Please maintain safe distance from assembled fleets." Acknowledged Control. Beginning demonstration now. What happened next would be studied by xenobiologists, physicists, and historians for generations. The Prometheus rotated slowly, bringing what appeared to be a weapon system to bear on a small moon orbiting the system's fourth planet. The weapon didn't look like anything in the galactic databases. It was organic and mechanical simultaneously, with flowing lines that pulsed with internal light. Target acquired. Morrison's voice remained conversational. Single shot, standard power setting. The beam that emerged from the Prometheus wasn't visible in normal space. Instead, reality simply changed. The small moon, roughly 800 kilometers in diameter, ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not shattered, not vaporized. It simply stopped being there, leaving behind a perfectly spherical void in space that took several seconds to fill with the debris of nearby asteroids. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. Standard power setting? Ambassador Valinara's voice had lost all trace of its usual musical quality. Elena nodded, as if casual moon deletion was a perfectly normal occurrence. The Prometheus has 7 power settings for its primary weapon system. Captain Morrison used the lowest setting to avoid damaging nearby shipping lanes. Dr. Chun added helpfully, the full power setting is generally reserved for stellar-scale threats. We've found that anything above setting 4 tends to cause uncomfortable gravitational disturbances. Around the sensor room, career military officers and veteran diplomats struggled to process what they had just witnessed. The weapon that had casually erased a moon would have been classified as a planet killer in any other context, and the humans were calling it a standard power setting. How? Kekstar's voice was barely above a whisper. How is this possible? Elena's smile was gentle, almost sympathetic. Admiral, humanity has been in space for 50 years. In that time, we've encountered 47 different species, each more advanced than us, each possessing technology we could barely comprehend. Do you know what we did during those 50 years? She paused, letting the question hang in the air. We watched, we listened, we learned. Every species we met taught us something new, usually without meaning to. The Zorathi taught us about plasma manipulation and energy shielding. The Ethereal Syndicate showed us the principles of quantum consciousness transfer. The Hive Collective demonstrated organic engineering at a cellular level. Every single species we encountered contributed to our understanding of the universe. Dr. Chun picked up the explanation. You see, we were never trying to match your individual technologies. We were trying to understand the principles underlying all of them. While you were perfecting your existing systems, we were building something entirely new. Elena gestured toward the massive ship hanging outside the station. The Prometheus isn't just human technology. It's a synthesis of everything we've learned from everyone we've met. Zorathi energy systems integrated with ethereal quantum matrices, powered by Hive Collective bioneural networks, and guided by technologies that no single species ever imagined. The implications of her words sank in slowly. Humanity hadn't been the backward newcomers everyone assumed. They had been students, carefully observing and learning from every species they encountered, building towards something none of their teachers had envisioned. You've been studying us, Kekstar said, his scales shifting through colors too rapidly for easy interpretation. We've been learning from you, Elena corrected. There's a difference. We never took anything by force, never stole any secrets. We simply paid attention when you were willing to share. Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication channels again. Nexus station control. Demonstration complete. Should I return to holding position, or did anyone want to see the secondary weapon systems? The frantic signals from every military commander in the assembled fleets created a cacophony of nitrogen monoxide in dozens of different languages. Elena chuckled softly. I think that will be sufficient for today, Captain. Please return to standard patrol configuration. As the Prometheus slowly rotated back to its previous orientation, Elena looked around the room at the assembled representatives. The mockery and dismissal that had characterized their attitude toward humanity for the past 2 days had vanished, replaced by expressions of shock, fear, and most importantly, respect. "The galaxy is a dangerous place," Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "There are threats out there that no single species can face alone. Humanity would like to offer our assistance in preparing for those threats." 6 months later, the Galactic Defense Initiative was established with humanity as its chief coordinators. The UE's Prometheus was joined by 7 sister ships, each one incorporating improvements based on continued learning and cooperation with alien species. The galaxy had learned to see humans not as primitive newcomers, but as the universe's most dedicated students. And in the depths of space, ancient threats that had slumbered for millennia began to stir, drawn by the energy signatures of weapons that could erase moons with casual ease. The galaxy would soon discover that humanity's greatest lesson had been a simple one. Sometimes the best defense is making sure your enemies think very carefully before they make themselves known. The age of human underestimation was over. The age of human cooperation had begun. Asterisk.